Welcome to Mr. V Teaching Math. In this session, we're going to look at one of the harder graphs to draw, a circle graph. It's challenging because there are a great many different skills and steps that have to be followed. First, you need to collect whatever data it is you're going to graph. Then you have to convert the data into percentages. Then you have to take all those percentages and convert them into the degrees of a circle. Then you actually have to draw the graph. It's very easy to make any number of mistakes while going through this process. So let's begin. I have here a set of data. What's it about? I'm not certain. It could be about anything. Perhaps it's about what color the sky is in your world. The first thing you need to do is turn these into percentages out of the total. First, we need a total. So we'll add this up. We have a total of 62. So in other words, for blue, it's going to be out of 62. Each one of these is out of 62. Or to think of it another way, we're going to divide to turn this into a percentage, because that's what we're trying to do now. We want all of these in a percentage. Now what do we do when our calculator generates a really big number like this? Well, first of all, we have to make sure that it's out of 100. In reality, we do not need this full number to generate our end result. However, we do need to be careful. It is possible, given the fact that we have all these extra decimal numbers here, for us to end up with a total that does not equal 100%. So I'm going to go to one decimal place because that is going to be sufficient for our purposes. So this is 27.4%. Once again, going to one decimal place, I'm going to round up because that's a 5. 19.5%. .2%. 50%. Great! I have my percentages. One common mistake of students is to take these numbers and to immediately go to the circle and start putting those numbers onto the circle. These are percentages. Now we need to turn it into degrees of a circle. Keyword here is of. How many degrees are there in a circle? We know that there are 360 degrees in a circle. The word of tells us what to do. It tells us that we're going to multiply times our 360 degrees. So we take our percentages, and remember, this might be 27.4, but before I multiply it, this is a percentage. I'm going to convert that back into a decimal. And I know it's going to be 98.64 degrees. Again, I'm going to round to one decimal place, although in reality, I can't actually draw 0.6, but I can maybe draw 0.5 if I'm really careful. And if I take a moment just to double check to see if this actually adds up to 360, we're going to have a problem. As you can see, it does not actually add up to 360 degrees. And that's because of the rounding problems that we're having, because we're rounding twice. However, it's close enough that it's still going to work for the purposes of what we're doing. Now I have the degrees of the circle that I need in order to draw my circle graph. So the next thing I need to do is start by drawing a circle. Unfortunately, the lead that I'm using in this particular compass is not very dark, and so it's a little hard to see on the video. I'm going to go over it again with my pencil, although that's going to make my circle a little bit rougher than I usually like it to be. But this way you'll at least be able to see what it is that I'm doing. One thing you also need to do is keep track of where in the world you actually had the center of your compass. Now often it's pretty easy because the compass will leave a hole in the paper, but I also chose to use the cross points of one of the grids. Alright, so how do I start? Well, you start anywhere you'd like, and you draw a line. Anywhere at all, just start. So I've drawn a line. It doesn't mean anything yet. Then the next thing that I'm going to need to do is pull up my protractor and then start measuring each of these and drawing them on the graph. It doesn't really matter which one you start with. I'm just going to start at the top and go down. So I need a 98.6. I can't really draw a 0.6, but I might be able to draw a half. So 98.5 is what I'm going for. 0, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, the next thing again, I want to do the 70.2. I have to go from this line. That's another common mistake, is that people will keep drawing from that line again and again and again. But I have to continue around the circle. So 70.2 is my 0. I can't really draw a 0.2. Here's my 70 mark. And again, moving around the circle, my number will be 11.5. So 11, and try to get a half. If I did this correctly, this should be an almost straight line, and it is almost straight. One of the challenges of working with pencil and ruler is it might not turn out perfectly, because the final section is 180 degrees. So I ought to be able to line this up and get a 180 degree measure for my final section. Then, of course, I need to have this labeled correctly. This was the blue section. This is the yellow section. This is the green section. This is the purple section. But of course, it needs a title. And that is how you create a circle graph.